Hello and welcome back to the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast sponsored by Schneider Electric. This week we are talking about RCDs and in particular some of the changes around Amendment 2 and how that factors in with apprenticeship training right now. We also mentioned the update to the apprenticeship standard coming soon. Hello and welcome back to the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast. It is me, Mark, and as you will see, those who are watching, I'm not at home at the minute, so I'm away on a semi-holiday/family trip. I've got Jamie and Craig with me again tonight. How are you, Craig?
Good. It's a nice Tuesday evening with the sun out.
It is even up here in Scotland, actually. I mean, you'll know better than me. I don't know if it's sunny up here very often, but it's out at the minute.
If it's over 2 degrees, it's sunny.
We got Jamie as well. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thank you very much. Hot down here as normal. I need to get a low wattage bulb in this light, to be honest.
Yeah, you've been stuck in that Gary Justin podcast for about a month now, mate.
Yeah, it's I need something a bit more permanent, mate. It's a bit warm in here, if I'm honest.
It almost looks like it's getting neater.
You know what? I ain't touched it because to do what I need to clean up, I need to move this, and this had moved. So I've just put this here, lock, to make it look electrical. It's hiding. Crap.
It does look tidier. It looks like you have tidied up, to be fair to you, mate. You've maybe had the little fairies in cleaning up after you.
Yeah, I think it's good lighting, mate, not tidying.
Anyway, we were going to have a bit of a discussion around RCDs tonight. We're not going to go into too much technical detail because we realise lots of you were following on apprenticeship and training routes. So we want to give an overview of it. We're going to talk about a few other bits of things we're involved with as well. So who wants to take us up on this little journey through RCDs, where we're going to pick up with it from the top?
Yeah.
I think Jamie should start.
If you put a banana into an RCD, you need
Everyone's
to get a
looking at you,
banana
Craig.
There you go.
I think it's just talking about it real low level about the fact of knowing that an RCD exists and knowing its sort of primary functions and monitoring the balances across loads when you're looking at your line neutral and your earth and making sure that different components and different devices that there might be in the consumer unit having different functions. And I think that's kind of our primary starting point, I guess, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. So if you're coming into the industry as an apprentice, we've got a new year group starting in September, and you're getting familiar with all of the other current protected devices we use. RCDs are a big part of that now. Certainly within the domestic area, it's fair to say most of your circuits you're installing are going to have RCDs on them. So I mean, they're earth fault leakage protection, I guess, and that's to try and reduce the risks of electric shock. And in the old terms, we used to say fire as well, but of course we have those new protective devices called AFDDs now that are helping us out with that as well.
And I think it's for people to realise and correlate the fact that when you talk about domestic properties anyway, and especially on socket circuits, from what I've seen over the years, students don't always put the term RCD and RCBO together to understand that there are combined devices. Obviously, we know there's the age-old split-load board scenario, which is slowly starting to make its way out, but people are seeing them without necessarily realising that they're seeing them and understanding how that operates.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. If you've got the products that can do the same thing but in a different form factor, haven't you? So your RCDs are generally RCCBs, as you might know them, double pole. They tend to take up 2 modules in a single phase board, whereas an RCBO, it's 50-50 now as to what people refer to them as, if they're a switch neutral or a double pole RCBO, but some of them will open both line and neutral, some of them have a solid neutral, but essentially they do the same thing. They're looking for those earth fault leakage protection.
You poor bastards who are joining the trade now. It didn't used to be like this. Sorry, all you new people. It used to be MCBs, a few RCDs, and that was it. And now, unfortunately, you've got a much steeper curve to climb. So be aware of that from the start. It's horrendous.
But it's only that way if you start to make it really overly complicated. Obviously, there's the whole bit of understanding the science and the practical and the theory behind it, and I get all of that. But if you are starting out, which is where we're kind of looking at with this conversation, and if it's wanted, we can start to go more in depth in the future, is having handy guides out there. So page 87 in the on-site guide on the Amendment 2 one anyway lists sort of the main requirements and the reg numbers next to it as to what you need RCD protection for and what sort of circuits you're applying, and taking that little bit of knowledge, which is literally sort of 6 bullet points down the book, and talking to your employer on site and asking why are you RCD testing, why are you putting RCBOs on circuits, why are you not installing circuit breakers, and having those sort of base level conversations, I think starts to make a huge difference to what you understand when you're coming into college, because you're going to come in and you're going to get given a diagram of an RCD and you're going to get asked to list all the components inside it and provide explanations as to what's required. That's all great, but if you're not understanding the practical application on site with your employer and why you're doing it, you're probably connecting loads of these in, not even realising. And that's a bit that, for me, I think is a gap we're trying to fill with this, and starting to understand some of the correlation of why are you doing ramp tests? Why are you putting 30 milliamp RCBOs in a board? Why is it not 300 milliamps? Or where might you be putting them in? And just starting to match some of the theory and the practical components together.
Definitely. And you see lots of this installed incorrectly by experienced electricians. I come across installs all the time, especially in TT environments where RCDs have been installed horrendously. So getting that information out there from an early start point with apprentices and retrainees is something I think should be encouraged within colleges as well. Just the basics around selectivity and how these different RCDs work in series with each other as well. The basic principles of how they operate and the kind of faults they're looking to protect against. Because we've got additional protection and fault protection. For those of you who are not aware of the regs or involved in that level of study as yet, there are different things we are trying to protect against when we use RCDs in different installation environments. And they do form a big part of what we do. Like Craig said, this leans into different cable types as well, doesn't it? And our installation methods, it all kind of ties back into that one pool of knowledge. So I think it's a good place to start in your learning on apprenticeships.
And how many people fill in the front page of the checklist wrong because they put a 30 milliamp additional protection RCD down as fault protection?
And I've got to say,
I've seen that lots. I've probably done it myself lots.
Marks would day. If you're new to the game, when I start this, I've got to stress this because it does me and it's doing me, and I've been doing it a long time. So if you're new to the game, this isn't a video you can watch and just everything about RCDs. It's a constant cyclist, because when I started, every protected device that came before me was obsolete. You was replacing rewirable fuses, you was replacing cartridge fuses, MCBs were the new thing, and everything else before was knackered. Now, RCBOs and RCDs, existing ones from 10 years ago, will pass testing. So you've got to not only learn what's coming forward and what's happening now, but what is previously happening. And all RCDs look all different flavors and sizes and shapes. So don't think you're going to get it overnight, or you'll literally look at someone and go, is that an RCD? And so your boss might go, yeah, it is, yeah. Because there's all the stuff backtracking to do. It's not just like it looks like a domino fuse board and it needs slobbing in the bin. You've got to get used to the fact that older stuff is compliant as well, which is a nightmare, to be honest.
Which brings a nice interesting point, I guess, around Type A and Type AC RCDs or RCBO, and what you're looking at with the differences of them now, and trying to, at a very top level, explain that of Type A from, I think it's the 27th of September, is it? Amendment 2 comes in its formal place. Type A is what you should be looking to be installing now, and it's understanding when you look at them in the board the differences between the symbols of just a sine wave being Type AC, and to steal a little bit off of JB Electrical, putting a sine wave and a pair of boobies underneath it to be the way that you're talking about Type A RCBOs or RCDs, and understanding why in the new modern ways of our technology and how it's different now to when these all first came in the 16th, 17th edition.
10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. And
like that.
How everything we have now has nice smart bits of DC leakage, and I suppose the conversation around whether they do or don't blind RCBOs or RCDs is for a whole different day and many other people's tests, but the regs are now saying it does, and we need to ensure we install them And I suppose understanding Europe, that's just us kind of catching up with the rest of Europe, isn't it? Because they've been doing it with Type A's for a long time.
When I started, RCDs were a little bit exotic, if that makes sense. Like, I remember putting a lot of boards in where they weren't in there. And I remember buying my first board to fit on a weekend where it was 16th edition compliant, where the main switch was an RCD. Then I remember buying the first one where I had a split load and it was 2 RCDs. And you knew then that eventually all of them would be RCDs, and that's happened now. That's 20 years later that's finally happened. So there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Jamie. It's kind of something I think we're all kind of the similar age, aren't we? And that's the journey we've had. And I think a lot of the learners now are probably going to see that with AFDDs as their start point, and how that is going to transition through their careers, where you're looking at protecting certain circuits, and then eventually it's going to build out into all circuits, isn't it? We can see that happening. But yeah, identifying these things is a great shout, Craig, because it's something a lot of electricians struggle with ourselves, with these different symbols and signs. And as Jamie said, identifying older and obsolete gear is sometimes an absolute nightmare. It's not something that's straightforward and simple. So having an awareness of what these things are, what they look like, and the reasons why we use them is brilliant. And as Craig said there, if you're generally installing RCDs, now you need to be using Type A because of the potential to blind the old AC RCDs. And again, there is some dispute among our experienced electricians about that, because they've served quite well for probably 20, 30 years in the form factor that they've been in. I know it's hard to state how many lives or fires they might have prevented, but I imagine it's quite a few. So, they've done a reasonable good job. But here we are today. That's by the by. And yeah, it's just to put it out there, really. If you are on that journey and you want to really dig into some of the technical aspects of the trade and get yourself ahead a little bit, have a read up on RCDs, look in the on-site guide, have a look into the regs. There is lots of information in there. They do tie in all across the regulations. Actually, they're mentioned in more places than one. So that's something to keep an eye on.
I can't tell you off the top of my head either. We had these changed out recently. We changed this. I'm not a working Sparky day in, day out, and I couldn't tell you the new RCD tests. Like, something I still have to look in the book at. I'm still 1/2 times 5, which I think, because that still covers me, doesn't it? If I did all them, but I don't have to do all them. I've only got to do times 5. Is that right?
Exactly.
Right.
Times 1, isn't it?
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah.
Times 1, because
type AC mode on the times 1.
They're in the correct. Oh yeah, you only this is the bit now. This is the moronic bit. Don't know why. You get an A-type RCD, the new shiny RCDs. Old RCDs aren't dangerous, but you only test it to the AC standard on times 1.
And I think it's to do with test equipment.
It's crystal clear, isn't it? How can you not know that?
I think it's to do with test equipment, because as they're starting to phase this in, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure if I am, someone will tell me. But they didn't want everybody to have to go out and buy new test meters, and I'm not sure that all test meters can change a function to Type A RCDs to be able to test that part of it to measure the DC leakage.
So just looking forward then, are we saying that is that looking forward, because I want people to be able to follow this. I don't know why I'm using this toothbrush as a pointer. Sorry. I'll continue this toothbrush as a pointer. Are we saying that we've come through that journey, haven't we, of RCDs coming in? Are we saying now that by the time apprentices now are 20 years old like we are, testers will do A and they will get tested to A? Is that what it is? Is it a slow burn?
I think lots do, but I'm sure there's probably some out there that don't. And that might not be the reason, but it's the only reason I can kind of see why. And there was something around, we're not meant to be trying to match the manufacturer's testing, because we can't match what they do in a controlled environment to what we're doing out on site. So therefore, if you are testing and getting a reading of times 1 and giving you what greater than 300 milliseconds or whichever it is, then you should be saying that will disconnect in a safe manner in time to therefore start to comply, which should still prevent electric shock, which is what we are hoping to achieve as electricians rather than as manufacturers' product standards. And
fundamentally, if people are sat there confused by this because they need to, they're not quite there yet. Fundamentally, RCD protects people, doesn't it? It stops people dying. Simple as that. That's what it's for. Any RCD, no matter whether it's made in, hang on, is it not ELCBs, RCDs, turn off power to protect people quickly. That's all it is, isn't it, basically?
Well, I think the biggest story was, and Dave Savey done a video on it, didn't he, where the young boy, unfortunately, in the pub where he touched the light in the metal rail and there wasn't the RCD protection there to disconnect it.
Arbiterel. It is the video, the unfortunate death of Arbiterel by David Saber. I think every spark should watch that. I've said it before, but that's the video.
But yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, that was a cracking video that Davo did.
Over. There's a bit of a delay on Mark. So I don't know if it's going to come out the record. There's a bit of a delay on Mark. Over.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the ones people often forget about, Mark touched on earlier, is about how RCDs link back to installation methods and how many people are burying cables in walls and not necessarily protecting it in a suitable manner, and then not attaching RCD protection. And light and switch jobs, I guess, has to become the big one that you think about as the initial part if you're talking around the domestic installation, especially.
Yeah, I mean, there's big issues as well in commercial installs. You'll have come across this recently, I think, Craig. We had a chat offline. If you're putting lots of IT equipment onto single RCDs and the issues you can have around the natural leakage that occurs in those appliances. So as you kind of build out into this, it can be quite an expansive subject. It's not something that's simple and straightforward. And we just want to give a basic overview of kind of what you are looking to achieve through using RCDs and understanding what they are. If you want to go off and read more into it, Wiring Matters from the IET has some brilliant stuff. John Ward's got a load of videos on his YouTube channel as well. There's loads of stuff out there where you can go and get into the really technical aspects of RCDs.
And this is not the kind of topic you crack overnight or in a week, is it? This is like a continuous look at what's going off, what manufacturers doing and that. So don't, if you're there at the start going, I don't know what's going off. Well, the new regs come out and neither do I really. Still got to read it myself, so I don't get put off.
No, exactly that. This is it. It's a daunting prospect when you look at this industry from a wide angle, isn't it? And Jamie's dead right. My camera and microphone is on a massive lag to you guys. I don't know what's going on. I think it's the Scottish internet. I'm blaming Scotland for it. But yeah, it's not the best. So I do apologise to those who are watching and listening. Hopefully it does come out okay. But we've had I don't know if I speak for Craig, so I won't mention it, but I'm helping with the IFA review of the electrical apprenticeship standard. So that's changing at the minute just to move it on from RCDs. For those of you who aren't aware, we've had the domestic apprenticeship drop in the last few months, and now they're looking at changing the standard for the traditional apprenticeship, as I call it. There's a review process going on right now. As soon as that's been kind of confirmed and put together, it's going to go out for industry review in August. So everyone's going to have the chance to have their say. So if you're an employer listening to this, or you're in education, or you're somebody who's on an apprenticeship, if you want to be heard, that's the time to get involved and input into it. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I
just hope the industry does get involved, because there's lots of people shouting loudly on social media about their views and how it could be done better. It would be good for that to come to the table and start to have them in those public forums, because ultimately that's where it's going to change. That's where the start point is going to happen. That's where we're going to see a difference. And it'll be nice, I think, on this occasion, the more voices, the better, to be able to take those views in. And the working group or panel that we've got now, I think it's got a nice spread of employers and education and industry bodies. And it'll be nice to see how that comes back. You almost want a kind of regulation response to the fact that that's taking place, don't you, when it comes out for publication to see. And it is hopefully going to start to address some of the issues taking place. I mean, there's been some change going on today about funding bands, and can there be more allocated funding, and how can we support sparks into teaching, and how can we then improve the teaching taking place. And it's nice to see some good healthy debate taking place around the industry and the potential changes that are coming.
Over.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Sorry, Jamie. Was you going to jump in there, mate? Go for it.
No, I was taking. I will do. I was taking the piss. What was I going to say? I've totally lost my train of thought now because I said over. I am very negative. I do this podcast. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on the Monday Club. Yeah, I'm renowned for being negative and a gobshite, right? Because I generally only give negative feedback, but that'll do. Any feedback will do. The reason I never really give positive feedback is because It's not my style. And when everything's reasonably okay, we can look at patting people on the back. If you are one of those people that goes on social media or the industry and moans, yeah, I might be an internet gobshite and I can't really write very well, and I'm just trying to represent Sparks. But when the regs come out, I look through the draft public comment and I put my form in. And I found out after that about 1,500 people did. So one of them was me. So out of all you moaning bastards, the internet gobshite of electricians, actually put pen to paper. So and this goes for everything. If you want to just go on Twitter and be a dickhead about it, you'll never get anywhere shouting on the internet. But if you just get those forms and feedback, you might get listened to. So,
And there's been, I don't know how much you talk about the conversations taking place because nothing's out yet, but there's been some interesting, healthy debate and conversation. There's nobody standing there saying they are right. It's probably the most reviewed I have seen the apprenticeship take place, because although it's talking about the domestic apprenticeship, it's also feeding out into the wider, what we class as the current apprenticeship, because that's due for change soon as well. So all these changes are going to start to span across the industry as a whole, and it's going to be interesting to see it. So the more people talking about public comment, the more people sharing about it, the more people discussing. And I think for learners, don't start switching off at this point now, thinking that it doesn't affect you. Start to feed back about what you want to get from the industry. Where are you wanting to go? Where do you want to see it move to? Like Jamie said on the podcast last week or a couple of weeks ago, it's a big industry. What is it that you are looking at? Do we need to be putting things like programming, for example, back in to the apprenticeship because everything's going Control 4 or smart lighting or smart homes, and you're now expected, if you're one of those sparks, to be programming your software at the end of the job and logging on remotely to fix people's houses. I don't know enough about it, but that might be the exact point I'm making.
And you'll
I
soon
don't know, but you might want to.
You'll soon be logging into your FDDs apparently for a niche in joke there. So who knows where the industry's going? And obviously, all you young people out there, old people don't like change. You'll be like us one day. People do moan about it, but the simple fact is, and I've said this over and over again, I'll say it again now, is the industry is big, but the industry is getting too big for people to do everything. And it's been like that. If you want to be a spark, it does everything. Get yourself a time machine and go back to maybe about, I don't know, the early 1960s. But nowadays, there's no way a spark is doing all the sparky work. Over.
It's a vast industry, and yeah, and you're right, Jamie. That is it. The Hager AFDDs, I think, where they've saying you can do updates to them, isn't it, and change the algorithms and all of that stuff. So there is all that side of things coming. It's not just a case of joining wires together anymore. It is more complex. It's been really nice to see behind the curtain of what goes into developing these apprenticeships. I think they were saying the last time the traditional one was reviewed was in a proper fashion was 20 odd years ago. So this has been a long time coming. There is a wide cross section of industry involved in the discussion, and I can say from seeing it at close quarters, it's not this ivory tower dictation of what needs to happen and what these people want to benefit themselves. Is often the accusation. It is genuinely good people who are coming together to try and put something in place that's going to help others on their learning journey in future careers. They want the best for them and industry. I think that's fair to say.
And the worst thing you can do is do nothing, don't you? Over. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. Because if you moan, if you have a problem and you continue to do what you've always done without applying any changes and you continue to get bad results, that's because you've changed nothing. So not all change is good, but there has to be change for things to move on. Otherwise, we'd all still be banging pyro in, wearing flat caps, sucking asbestos as we smoke our cigarettes at work. You know what I mean? So it's not all change is great, but it has to be done.
I think I've tried to live most of my life by saying that if you're not happy with something, you've got to be willing to be involved to try and do something about it. And if you're not, or you're not willing to, then I think you lose the right to moan. And that's always been the way I've tried to set out. If I can't be bothered to change it or try and change it, then I shouldn't have the right to moan about it, not change it.
Over.
It's a fair outlook, I think. I think there's there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's some people that are quite happy with things. We need to remember this as well. There's lots of electricians out there who are quite happy going about their daily lives, and they're not on social media complaining, and they don't see a problem. And often that side of discussion's totally ignored. So I think having the pool that have come together around all of this does involve those people as well. These aren't people who are all over social media and active in those circles. So you are getting those wide industry views. So you need to remember this is an industry review, not a social media review. So that's an important point to make, that some of the things you'll see cropping up on social media, and I've raised a few of these, I'm one of the worst for it. I'll hold my hand up and admit to that. You know, it's not just those issues that have been put forward. It's all kinds of things that people really do see out in the workplace.
I think it's time for us to realise that. I think now is probably, and lots of people talk about it, but now is probably the most exciting time to be in the industry for a long time, because there is such a broad spectrum. So let's start to move into a way where we manage that and we work with that, and hopefully people look at taking on different roles and they become better at it, and we start to increase the standard of the industry and what we're doing. I'm not saying that it's shocking. I know people have different views about different installs they see, and I get there's a lot of confusion, but I don't want to sit here and say all electrics is bad, because that's not the case.
that's a sweeping statement.
But having people working into different sectors and going, do you know what? I'm really going to specialise on being the best domestic spark I can be, or the best controls engineer, or I want to do containment for the rest of my life. There's nothing wrong with any of those bits, but seeing people start to take them on and really kind of smash that as their way that they're going is only got to help the industry as far as I'm concerned.
I remember we've gone from...
Yeah, I totally agree, mate.
I'll spin it out, then I'll say over. In 10 years, we've gone from electrical. If you was a keen electrician like I am, and you want to help the industry, like some people on Twitter do, there's people on Twitter that want to, and Instagram, that want to do things and progressions like that's why we're sitting on this podcast, isn't it? There's people that just want to be sparks and do that. The only thing social media's done has made it easy for those people to find each other. So they've always been in the industry, but 97% of sparks just want to spark. Learn to be a spark and spark. If you want to be in the industry, you used to find people like this in the ECA, the NIC, and in those little meetings and stuff like that. But now you can find each other on the internet, which is obviously how we've all bumped into each other. And that's, if you want to do stuff and get involved and make change, it's easier to get involved with making that change, I'd say. It's always been there, these little underground gangs that come up with all the rule changes, but it's just easy to find them now. And it's easy to open discuss stuff. You can literally, you ain't got to write a letter off to Fresh Electrician anymore going, I find the new AFDDs rather insulting. You can just literally go on Twitter and say it straight away. That's what's changed. It's always been there, though.
I find that I know people have mixed reviews about the NIC and things, but one of the things I think they've done really well is I like seeing the weekly question come out and their answers and the way that people are coming up with the topics. I think the more of that taking place, the more people are trying to put different ideas and suggestions forward and use social media to help the industry. It's got to be a good thing.
And let's not pretend that NIC stands the industry. I'm not saying I am renowned for slagging off the organisations, but only because I want to pick on the bad bits. Let's not take away from the fact that the ECAs, the NICs, the NAPITs and all that, they have dragged the industry forward. It's not like they're all negative. It's just that I'd just like to focus on some of the bad bits, and that's just how it is. But yeah, without them, we'd all be dying in ditches hanging on to bare cables or something. I don't know. Over.
There's accountability at all levels, isn't there? Their accountability is at what they've done with and to industry, and I think they're starting to come around to some of the issues they might have caused, along with some of the good stuff they've done. In the same way, they like to have accountability of their members and other electricians who were employed by contractors in their schemes. So I think that it's a two-way street on that front. So they aren't without areas of complaint, and they should be open to receiving them. So you've got every right to voice your opinions, Jamie, as long as they're done in a fair and open way. I don't see the issues with it at all. But more widely, you're dead right as well. Social media's opened those discussions up. There's lots more avenues for people to interact with each other and share ideas, and definitely raise awareness around such things as this review into the apprenticeship standard. Before it would have been an advert that might have gone out into an industry magazine of a CPS or trade association as it was then, or something
He's gone.
I don't know if it was me or if it was Mark. Like,
Audio's gone. Mark, your audio's
Gone.
gone. Oh, you're back. You're
Oh,
back.
no way. No way.
It was just that
that
last
was
little bit.
probably the best
Okay,
thing you've
this
ever
is-
said in
this
your
is a
life.
technical-
No one
I can't believe you gave the lottery numbers away, Mark.
Fantastic.
heard
No, it's really difficult because I seem to have very, very sketchy Wi-Fi, and I think it's just dropping out, which is a shame.
Who
So we
knows
won't
how
drag
this
this
will come
podcast
out?
out too long. And I did have, yeah, I think it'll be okay. I did have a guest lined up for us tonight. It was Richard Harvey, who was going to come on last week, but dropped out because he was going to play bowling. I put that off till next week because I didn't think it was fair to have a guest on with my unknown connectivity. And I'm glad
it
we did that
wasn't.
now, because it's one thing having these issues with you two guys, but it's very embarrassing with a guest as well.
Well, I think the point of tonight is we've had a very basic kind of introduction for apprentices to start to think about one component of the industry they might be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and trying to get them to start doing a little bit of reading in preparation for September, needing to be challenging your college lecturers in front of you when you're looking at that and asking these questions, because if you don't have them in your fuse boards at colleges, then finding out why you don't have them in there. Why are they not using it? Because it should, and that might be a cost issue, but the knowledge and the theory still needs to be there and understanding. And I know when EFIX came to the college that I was at before coming back to industry, they left some really nice models of these, and getting that hands-on experience is sort of second to none. So don't be scared to challenge your employer, don't be scared to challenge your college lecturer, ask your questions, do the learning. If there's specific topics you want, we can always try and go on a bit more, and we can take them to a sort of level that people want them to be. But it's just to get you thinking around the regulation changes which are coming as you're starting college and going back to work. And then sharing some general gossip of the industry of what we're seeing and what we're enjoying. We're not sat here saying we know it all, saying that we run it. We're just saying this is our three opinions on what we are seeing and what we're trying to involve ourselves in. And hopefully that gives someone some help and benefit somewhere.
Over.
Absolutely. And to give a shout out to Schneider, I've seen them recently. Tom has been putting posts out across social media inviting colleges to get in touch with him for products for them to take in and show their learners and demonstrate. And I saw a post as well to show this isn't just about a sponsor of the show, where Loudon had done just the same with the training centre this week. They've sent out those see-through RCBOs. And I know they do that for other places as well. So if you are in a training centre and you want some of these materials to show your learners, reach out to industry and ask some of these manufacturers. They do help. So it's well worth reaching out and getting that support where you can. Is there anything else you two would like to discuss before we end this tonight? I know Jamie's got some top secret news. I don't know if he wants to share it with us on here or not. No pressure, mate. But is there anything you want to share with us tonight?
I was going to finish it off. I was struggling to work out what he was on about then. Then I realised. I won't share that news because I don't think it's common knowledge yet. But there's 3 dimensions to being a tradesman. There's theory, practical, and political. You don't have to get too involved in the political one, but it is there, and it always will be. And if you get deep into it, you'll find yourself getting involved with it. And there's no wrong with no matter how young or old you are, putting your opinion forward. So if you're on apprenticeship in year 1 or 2 and you want to feedback on that apprenticeship scheme, do it. Get involved. Don't just be. If you want a job, great. That's when you turn up at 8 till 5 and do what you're told. If you want a career, you get involved in all 3 dimensions of it. And I still don't know why I've got this toothbrush in my hand.
Mine would just be ask questions and challenge the industry. Too many times over my time in education have I heard, well, that doesn't match, we don't need to know that on site. What's the point? There is a point to it. You do need to know it. So ask a question, get someone to explain to you the theory behind it and why it has a practical application on site, because it is useful.
Over.
I'd echo that, both of Jamie and Craig's points, as always. Apologies to everyone for my slightly shaky connection and audio on this one. Hopefully it comes out okay. I've really enjoyed chatting with the guys again. I think we've covered some nice topics there that are definitely relevant to apprentices and those in the training space.
How long have we been recording?
A while, mate.
It's been hard work tonight, yeah. Whenever it gets hard, keep going. Yeah,
40 minutes.
That's what's taken out this one, apprentice. If it gets hard, keep pushing on and make the best of the situation you can. Even if you sat there staring at the screen, wondering when Mark's order is going to come through. So
it's
Love
one of
this.
those things, technical issues. But we will be back. We will be back, and we do have some guests lined up. As I said, Richard's coming on. We've got somebody from the ECA coming on to talk with us as well, and a training centre who doesn't just do electrical stuff, they do the whole range of construction skills. So they could be quite nice to speak to. We will be back soon with all of that. If you want to get involved in the comments, if you have any questions, drop them in there. We do all visit those areas of the YouTube channel and some of the stuff over on social media as well. We're all here for that. And otherwise, we will see you on the next one.
Take care, all.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast, sponsored by Schneider Electric. Please like and subscribe to the channel, get involved with the comments, and we will see you on the next one.